had like all my like crazy ass like manifestations all over the mirror and like I'm gonna meet my husband and like just crazy shit. And I'm like, some guys would be like goodbye, and he was like totally fine. And I'm like, yeah, that's it. That's perfect then, because that's me. I'm gonna keep writing my manifestations out, and that's just like a part of who I am.
He just looked. He's like ha ha ha, and like laughed. And then
I don't know. I think
he's like, no, it's fine. He's like, I'm just gonna step out for some fresh air for like 20 minutes to an hour to never. Yeah.
Yeah.
I did have a comment before we actually begin. So the last time, I know we did a live stream on like Instagram not like too long ago, but the actual, since we've done an actual interview or conversation, has been December 3rd, 2019.
Oh my gosh, wow.
Yeah, almost 4 years.
That's pretty crazy.
So
Wait,
my first question would be, so Chloe, it's awesome to have you on, but like what's been up for the last 4 years?
Oh god, so much stuff. Oh man. Let's see. 2 breakups. But no, I released an EP called The Awakening Volume 1. And now I'm getting ready to release the second one, which is very exciting. So yeah, I mean, lots of music. I mean, I released a single basically every month beginning last January up until the end of April. And then just started releasing Boyish, and 94 just came out, and going to be releasing a single again every month up until the new year. So lots of stuff. And then obviously during COVID, I mean, I was writing, I was in the studio, I was healing from a lot of stuff. And that kind of inspired my EP. So yeah, I don't know how to sum up 4 years without getting too detailed.
Yeah, I like how you open it up with like, oh yeah, 2 breakups. It's like,
yeah. Oh no, we're far.
It goes from like it goes from like ha 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 ha, like it's like, are you okay?
Oh, I'm great. Well.
I do want to ask you, because when you mentioned about 94, like obviously, you know, I got the press release from 94, and that's one thing to get like a press release, and it's like when you're reading it yourself, you're kind of like, okay, that's great. It's like sending out like anything to anybody of like, this is who I am, but like tell me a little bit about like 94 from your perspective, because it's one thing to read it, but then when you get your own like artist perspective, so like tell me a little bit about that.
Yeah, for sure. Obviously, yeah, the in-person explanation is obviously always the best and most interesting. But yeah, I mean, 94 was inspired by none other than a real situationship. As I feel like a lot of people, at least, you know, in our generation, millennials and Gen Zs, like know very, very well. And, you know, people outside of that definitely have probably experienced it, but don't necessarily know that that's the term. But for me, yeah, it was like I'd met somebody like right before COVID, and then we really hit it off. And then it was just bad timing. Like I just like ended a relationship, and then he was moving away, and yeah, the world shut down, and it was kind of like, all right, like let's figure out COVID. And you know, I continued on with my life, and we didn't really chat. And then I found him moving back, and it was like, okay, like, you know, the what ifs started crumbling back in my head. It was like, maybe there's a chance to see if there's something here. And yet it was like kind of like 1 step forward and then 2 steps back. And it was like kind of like we both didn't really know how to act around each other, I guess. Even like though we weren't even in person for the longest time. And it was just kind of like me thinking like, why is there this giant elephant in the room that like no one's talking about? And yet like I was at a place in my life where I was like finally really starting to heal and kind of like open up to the idea of pursuing something again or trying something again, even if it meant that it might not work out. Like, because for the longest time, after you get out of like a really serious long-term relationship, it's like you got to be alone. At least like for me, like I reached a point, I was like, I need to be alone, because the idea of like starting over again and it not working out is like terrifying. But I finally got to the place of like being by myself where I was like, well, even if it doesn't work out, like I'm fine. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
I'm good. It'll be okay. And so I was getting there, and I don't think he was necessarily like there on that same page. But anyway, so the song was kind of inspired by that like frustration of like, well, yeah, like we can both be playing these games, but at the same time, like with almost a confidence like that it was bound to happen. So why are we wasting time? You know, like kiss
True.
me before like we're 94 years old, you know, like
Yeah.
all we have is the present moment. And I was really trying to embrace that too. And that's something I learned over COVID, is like how to embrace the present moment. So that's where I was at. And it turned into, yeah, into this song. And ironically enough, it didn't pan out, but it led me to something better, which, you know, is kind of where the video comes in and what you see towards the end of the video. Um, yeah, so that was kind of like my journey. And I feel like a lot of people kind of have that happening more often now, especially like with texting and like social media and like dating apps. It's like you get into these situations with people that like take a lot of your emotional energy
Yeah.
and feel like a relationship, but they never actually were.
Yeah.
And that's kind of what happened. And I had to like literally even like grieve that when it didn't work.
I think it's funny because when you say that, like the line of "Kiss Me Before '94," it just
Hmm.
the instant of like the grandmother from Titanic comes up, where it's just like it's been was it's like it's been 80 years or it's been
Yeah.
90. I'm just like, yeah. It's like I
Yeah.
guess that's what it would be. But when you explain that story, it
Hmm.
I feel like it's kind of similar because when I was in first year of university, I knew a
Hmm.
girl, but like yeah, just one, not everybody, but just one. And
Yeah.
they it was like never like you didn't feel like they liked you. You're just like, why would
Hmm.
you like me? Like, you know, like it's the
Right.
confidence thing. And maybe like guys just generally feel that way. But then it was like,
Hmm.
okay, dating someone else at the time. Then they broke up with that
Yeah.
person. And I'm like, well, if they like me, they'll ask me out. And then people are like, no, you gotta ask them out. And I was like,
Yeah.
yeah, I was like, no, I'm kind of comfortable where we're just kind of that friend thing.
Right.
And I was like,
Yeah.
and if I ask and it's no, then it's kind of like, oh, well, there you
Yeah.
go. And now we're ruined. And then
Right.
they moved, they didn't, was it the other day? They moved back home after the first term,
Hmm.
but I didn't know because at that point we were kind of not communicating. Then they moved
Yeah.
back and they were like literally like 3 houses down from where we were to in the second term.
No
But
way.
again,
Yeah.
didn't know. It was a roommate told me. And
Yeah.
then it's not been really the same since. It's like
Right.
you're still kind of communicating with them, but it's never that. So I'm
Yeah.
just kind of like listening to that and your story. I'm just kind of like, well, that's mine. That's my version of it. But at the same
Yeah.
point, it's just so like sometimes it would work out, and then other times just like, okay, like,
Yeah.
what?
It's kind of like I got to the point where I was like I just want to find out like what's here, you know, like
Yeah,
what are we potentially missing? And that's yeah, at that point that's where my mindset was at. And I think like now I'm at a place where I'm like I really do believe that you never miss out on like what is meant for you, and
sure,
like
yeah,
there's a reason for like that whole awkwardness and back and forth and whatever that I experienced. But at the same time, yeah, a lot of people get into these situations and and understand that like frustration or impatience or trying to learn like when to lean back and just like chill, and when to
yeah,
like be honest and open. I think you should always be honest, but you know what I mean? Like when to make a move, right?
yeah,
And be like really clear about
yeah.
what you want.
Yeah.
Um,
It's never my
yeah.
strong
So
suit.
yeah,
Yeah,
it's definitely hard. It's definitely hard,
yeah,
but
yeah.
I don't know. I think you gotta go for it, because I do think people sometimes.
Especially now
I'd
with
rather not regret it. You know,
yeah,
I'd rather not be like, what if I just told him how I felt?
yeah.
You know?
Especially in a world where you mentioned about texting and stuff and apps, it's like
Yeah.
it's so easy to be like, "Oh, yeah, it's like, yeah, we hang out a lot." It's like, "Do you?" It's like, we talk a lot." It's like, "Oh,
Yeah.
okay, but have you ever hung out?" It's like, "No, not really."
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then it just gets all confusing.
Yeah, it's just like, well, we talk all the time, and now it's
Yeah.
like okay. It's like
Well, and I
what
think
are we
another
doing?
thing is like there's like the walking on eggshells, and that's kind of what I talk about in the song too. It's like you could do this, and I could call you, but I'm not because I'm like afraid of like what if I'm coming on too strong or like what if I say the
Yeah.
wrong thing? And I think the other person's like mirroring that entirely. And that's like super normal, but eventually like I got so exhausted of like doing that and like wondering like should I send this text and not having like confidence in what I was saying, at times or gaslighting yourself. And
Yeah.
to the point where I finally got when I like met my boyfriend to the point where I was like, yo, this is who I am. And like, I really don't care if you don't like it, then there's the door and
Yeah.
there's
Yeah.
somebody else for you and there's
Yeah.
somebody for me. And like, I remember like I had him over to my house and like, I had like all my like crazy ass like manifestations all over the mirror and like I'm gonna meet my husband and like just crazy shit. And I'm like, some guys would be like, goodbye. And he was like totally fine. And I'm like, yeah, that's it. That's perfect then
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
that's me. I'm gonna keep writing my manifestations out, and that's just like a part of who I am.
He
But
he just he just looked. He's like, ha ha ha, and then like laughed. And then
he
you
was,
you
I don't know. I think
yeah.
he's just
He
like
was like no, it's fine. He's like, I'm just gonna step out for some fresh air for like 20
yeah,
minutes to an hour to never.
to never.
Yeah,
Yeah.
to not coming back. Just if I go missing, don't look for me, okay?
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah. No, I get it because when you're saying about like gaslighting yourself, like again, I know I feel like maybe it's similar, but I find like girls or females will just be like, guys got to make the first move to certain things.
Hmm.
I'm kind of like, okay, but when they do make
Yeah.
the first move, understand that that's a lot. That's a lot of pressure. So like,
Yeah.
if you're not gonna reciprocate or like just
Yeah.
like as was it like the what's his name, Alec Benjamin, just let me down
Hmm.
slowly, let me down
Yeah.
easy. Like,
Yeah.
just don't like go like,
Yeah.
oh my god, ew. I'd be like, now you crushed it. Now for 20 years, that guy's not gonna talk to anyone
Yeah.
because you just crushed. But
Yeah.
I would be sending messages to people that I know or roommates that I thought like, oh, like I want to hang out with those people or whatever. And I'd be like,
Yeah.
you don't really have this topic, but you just want to talk to the person. So it's just like, and it's not even like the greatest, it's not even like you're flirting. You're just like, I want to just start a conversation. It's just like,
Yeah.
oh, today's cleaning day, eh? And then they're just all
Yeah.
like, yeah, how did you know? It's like, oh, because on our side we're actually cleaning too. And they're like, cool. I'm just like, you guys got a Swiffer? I got a Swiffer. They're just like, you're sounding more like a concern. Like, are you selling them? Like, are you part of like a are you
Are you getting a commission for this?
yeah, like are you do they pay you to clean? Like, is it you're trying to say you want to clean our I'll be like,
Oh my god.
no,
Gotta
so like,
go.
you got any burgers? Or they were like, are you hungry too? Like, I'm just like, I don't know. What time they go? So
Yeah, I mean, we do crazy stuff when
yeah, yeah, yeah.
we're into
Just like, yeah,
people.
I'm going to Tim Hortons. You want to go to Tim's? Like, no. It's like, and then it's like in my mind, I'm just like, well, if no one's going to Tim Hortons, I'm not going. And someone's like, I'll go. And I'm like, but I don't want to go with you. Like, it's like two dudes going to Tim Hortons. Yeah, it's like cool. It's like, well, come on. You said you were going. I'm like, I changed my mind. Yeah. I want to
Exactly.
ask you as well about Boyish. Now I know Boyish has been out for, well, like I guess late September or in the summer, August.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
end of August.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So tell me a little bit about Boyish because when Natasha, because listen, I know Natasha pretty well. We went to school
She
together,
told
and
me, yeah, that's so
she told
wild,
she told you the
dude.
story. Okay, but anyway, so Natasha sent me a thing, and then as soon as she said, "Oh yeah, well she had Boyish come out," and I was like, okay, but I was just like, Boyish. Wait, what's that supposed to mean? Is that like a you're supposed to, and then when it was like
Yeah.
childishness, so I was just like, hey now.
Hey,
Yeah,
feeling called out there,
yeah,
Tobin?
yeah.
Yeah. Boyish is yeah, I mean it's inspired by the man children of the world.
Okay.
Yeah, I again it was actually funny because I saw it on somebody's I saw like boyish like it was like somebody's caption
Yeah.
and I thought that that would be a good song title and so I was like what does that mean and for me it immediately kind of sounded like yeah somebody who's kind of like behaves like a man child and then I realized I had obviously dated man children and people that just like don't know how to show up and or like in their minds think that they're a certain way, and in reality they're not, or and just like aren't meeting you in the middle, and it gets like really, really, again, frustrating. And and then I had a lot of friends too, like similar situations where they were dating these people and or not dating them, again, more situationships, and kind of going in circles and wondering why they're continuing to date these people, yet not acknowledging, like, hey, you can't change this person, like, you know what I mean, like, not to say that like they can't grow and whatever and mature, but like you can't force that out of somebody. Yeah, exactly. And I wanted this song to really encourage people, or not encourage, but like, I guess, empower them to realize, like, it's okay to call out the truth. It's okay to like do what's good for you and no longer put up with that behavior. And like, that's the only way that you can see the results you want, even if it ends up being with somebody else. Unfortunately, sometimes you want it to be this other person. But yeah, and again, yeah, not a gender thing at all, just a maturity thing, because there's plenty of women children out there too, for sure. So yeah, that's pretty much boyish, calling out the man children, and it could be even like your brother, like a man child.
I won't get into that, but there could be one in the family, I'm sure.
Yeah.
I have two brothers. Sure. I'm sure at some point they would consider me a man child, or vice versa, depending on the situation.
Sure.
Yeah.
Well, and I think when you can admit that you've been a man child, that's a good step.
It depends on the circumstance, I guess.
Yeah.
Like, yeah.
For sure.
If there's a certain point where it's just like, I don't know, anything that involves like video games, or if it's like a hockey reference, then it's a little bit more on the nose, where I'm just like, okay, it's like you're pushing buttons. It's like, I know I know I'm supposed to be 32 soon, but I'm still like, it's still a trigger. It's still a trigger. There's still this. I feel like everyone has a button that you push. That's why they call them buttons, because once you push the button, it triggers the response.
It's true. It's true. But again, at least
you're open enough to say it, right? Like,
exactly.
Like, I don't have a trigger at all.
Yeah, exactly. They're completely ignorant. So,
well, here's a good story for you, because it happened literally like 2 days ago. Is it 2 days? Yeah, probably 2 days ago. I was walking here in Ottawa, and like, again, Newfoundland's very friendly. I don't know if you've ever been, but it's very friendly, very open. And I was just walking around, like, minding my own business, had headphones in, and like, it's a Yorkie. It's a small dog, but it's a big muscular dude walking a small dog. So I just smiled at the dog, because we're going in the same direction, and I'm like, don't want to be an ass. And then the guy like stops me. He's like, "Is there a problem?" And I was like, no. And I was just like, "Why are you laughing?" And I was like, okay, I have headphones in, but I know when I hear myself laugh. So I was smiling, and then he's just like, I said to him, I was like, "No, I was smiling at your dog." And then he just, instead of just being like, "Oh, okay," he just kind of like kept going, and I'm just like, "How you're very insecure." Very
you said that?
No, like, in my mind, I wouldn't say it out loud, but I was like, I want to keep what I have, but it's just like,
no, for sure.
I was just like, I smiled at your dog. Like, why are you that? See, that to me, it's a little bit boyish.
Yeah, no, that's exactly, that's 100% boyish. Yeah, in the insecurity.
Yeah. And I did not
like,
tell.
own the fact that you got a small dog. Just be like, ow.
Chloe, I want to ask you too. Like, while we still got a little bit of time here, is you mentioned about the awakening, and then there's the awakening. I like it's volume 2. Like, tell us a little bit more about like the difference between. I know, because I'm interested when artists have volume 1 and volume 2. Like, to me, it's almost like a greatest hits volume 1 and volume 2. It's like almost like, oh well, these ones we really know you like in volume 1. Volume 2, there's like people are like, you didn't put this on volume 1. So explain, I guess, your difference between an Awakening 1 versus 2, or is it just more or less a marketing thing where you're like, people know what the Awakening is from me, they'll know Awakening 2 is.
It's funny. So they're kind of actually like the Awakening 2, or volume 2 is kind of like a prequel, actually.
Okay.
To the Awakening volume 1. It's actually backwards. With the exception of like a couple of the songs that I had put out on volume 1. that was actually recorded and written later. And these songs actually were that I'm about to release and are starting to release were written earlier, like 4 years ago. Sometimes.
Oh wow! So
And
like, what we could have just clued up an interview, and then you were like, "I gotta go write
gotta
songs
go.
now that after talking
Yeah,
to
yeah,
Tobin."
exactly. That's it was like in the process of writing these songs,
Yeah,
and uh, and yeah, and so volume two, I would say the biggest difference is that it's just an earlier, stage in my journey, and a lot of times more rawness and even more vulnerability is revealed, and it was really like these questions that I was asking myself on this like healing journey, and like when I was at certain stages, like I was during 94 where I was just like really wanting this person to admit it and go for it, and you know what I mean, like kind of more of like a chaser dynamic.
yeah,
I had, you know what I mean, and I was slowly learning how to like let go and surrender and trust the process and everything, but it was definitely like earlier in the journey. And then boyish too was when I kind of first was realizing, like who I was attracting for the longest time, maybe, or like who I didn't want to date anymore, and slowly learning those things. And then yeah, like I have another song on the record that's like very much like right after post breakup, and like
yeah.
really, like I was telling you, kind of at the stage where I wasn't ready to date anybody at all. And just yeah, like trying to process it all. There's a lot of to just kind of like daydreaming and manifesting and asking these questions and kind of just really internalizing like what's going on and what
That
you want, I
that
suppose.
that's fair. I feel like, so if it's safe to say, like, I'm
Hmm.
gonna be turning 32 in like 2 weeks. You have a
Hmm.
birthday, I believe, in like February.
Yeah,
So like, and you're on the crossroads of, is it almost like 30?
I will be. Yeah.
Yeah. Like, so how do you feel? Because when I was
Hmm.
29 to go 30, at first it was like, there a part of me that was like, oh, this is, oh, okay, I'm getting there. I'm getting
Yeah.
older. And then there's another part of me that's like, when someone tells you any age when you're 20, they're just like,
Yeah.
oh, like you're still a baby. It's like, oh, you have so
Yeah.
much. But as soon as you can turn like 30, they're just kind of, they're like, ah, okay.
Great.
It's not like you're old. It's just that they're
Yeah.
like, okay, like you got past your 20s. It's like, what did you do
Yeah.
in your 20s necessarily? And I'm just
Yeah.
like, well, it's like I didn't get a DUI.
I
I
didn't
it's
knock
like
anyone
I
up.
didn't get arrested for anything. I completed degrees. I did
Yeah.
fairly well. So I'm like, I think my 20s were okay. But like,
Yeah.
when you look back now, like there's still like,
Yeah.
listen, you still got months. But when you're
Hmm.
looking at your 20s as a whole, are you kind of
Yeah.
like, yes, this
Holy
is, I've
crap.
accomplished this, or are you kind of like, oh my God? Are you like,
Oh
are you like
yeah.
a
No, I'm
Rachel? Are
like
you a Rachel and Friends where you're just like, oh,
no, I've accomplished, I feel like, a lot, definitely. And a huge growth between 20 and 30, definitely, like
yeah,
without a doubt. I mean, yeah, wow. Completely in a different space, like mentally and perspective wise, and a lot more, I feel like, in tune with what I want, and um how to get it,
yeah,
I
yeah.
guess. And also just in regards to like self love too, in a completely like different place as well. So yeah, and then just in my career, obviously, like a lot has happened between 20 and 29 for the last 30.
Yeah.
Just as far as really realizing again who I am as an artist, who I want to continue to be, the type of music that I want to make, the sounds that I like, everything, what my goals are as an artist. And yeah, and then achieving a lot of them
Yeah,
so far. There's still like, of course, bigger ones, and there always will be. But yeah, I'm pretty proud of the last 10 years.
so do you, I want to ask you this, because you're an artist compared to me being a fan, but like, when you mentioned about, say, 10 odd years, because I'm looking at it from, say, 22 to 32 for me, but it's just
Hmm.
so like, you know, I grew up with Jonas Brothers, Justin Bieber, Selena,
Yeah,
Miley, and then just to watch them from like, and again, I was probably their age, because
yeah,
I'm around their age, but like, when they're first coming out with, just say, Burning Up or Year 3000,
right.
you're kind of like, this isn't for me. Like, I'm not really into it.
It's still for
And
me.
yeah, but like yet you download it
Yeah.
and you like it, but you're like, it's not just not really what I want to listen to. And then now it's like Jonas Brothers come out with like Montana Sky or
Right.
Celebrate or like
Mhm.
Selena Gomez. I think she has, well, I know it's a little bit older, but it's like the one where she sings about like losing yourself to love
Oh,
herself or
yeah,
whatever.
yeah, yeah,
And I'm
yeah.
just so like, this is the same person when I was younger that used to sing Cruella de Vil, and now she's
Yeah,
telling me
yeah.
about losing. You got to lose someone to love,
Right.
and I was just like, okay, but like. You're an artist, so like, how do you
Mhm.
kind of explain your evolution? Because listen, I
Yeah.
still will find on my iPhone sometimes,
Yeah.
like Indian Summer, and then
Yeah.
I'll listen to that, and I'll be like, that's the first time that I remember listening to Chloe. Then I'll listen to something more
Wow.
recent. I'll be like, there's
Yeah.
definitely a change, but
Yes.
not like a bad change, but it's just like
Right.
the artist perspective. Because I don't know,
Mhm.
I'm not gonna have Miley on tomorrow or Justin
Right.
Bieber, but like, tell me a little bit about like how that evolves over time. Like, do you just
Mhm.
wake up one day and be like, you know what, I think I want to write this a little bit more open. Like, I want people
Right.
to read me a little bit more.
Yeah. I think for me, well, and I think it might be different between like, 30 and 40 or something
Yeah,
because
yeah,
it's still, there's less, I feel like, less obvious growth there
yeah,
as there, you know what I mean? Like there's a huge maturity difference between I feel like 20 and 30 and like what you experience. And so for me, like a lot of it was building my confidence up, with again, like even playing live, like I was super novice even at 20. The person I am on stage now is completely different, like night
yeah,
and day. I think
yeah,
I was like beginning, like slowly but surely, like getting there, but I definitely was probably holding back and had, you know, more reservation on stage, which I don't have as much of anymore at all. I love I never even get nervous. Like I love it so much and being really open and stuff like that. But then, from a sound perspective too, just like I was maturing, throughout the various seasons and what I was like experiencing, like I was also learning what I liked and like what I necessarily didn't resonate with just because maybe like other people resonated with it or I
yeah.
was maybe supposed to because I was in this particular genre. Um, when I was living in Nashville and said, this is what I should sound like. And trying to fit in the box. And I finally kind of like got to the point where I didn't really
You weren't even in a box
care.
anymore.
Yeah, like I was kind of just like, I want to make music that feels right and it's gonna land where it's supposed to land. If I'm still intentional about it, obviously, but I don't want
Yeah,
to just like throw in something that like throw in a random banjo because that's considered country or like sing
yeah.
something I don't believe in or not use this sound because it doesn't fit this genre. You know what I mean? Whatever it was. And so yeah, I think I finally started really just like not caring as much about, like doing what other people were doing and kind of wanting to embrace like who I actually really was authentically and the new and the old that I liked and the mixture of pop and the songwriter in me and that you could do both. And I was at the same time witnessing artists like, you know, Harry Styles and Shawn Mendes and Ed Sheeran and stuff that were these males that kind of had that really cool combo. And that's what I was
Yeah.
doing naturally. I kind of was being told that, you know, I couldn't really do that in pop or country, like, so I kind of started to find my own lane. And obviously it's like leaning a lot more towards it is pop
It's
now,
just
but
interesting
it's
because
still
it's
my
like
own thing.
it's interesting to me because when you're saying like about, I know there are people out there that will kind of put things in a box, like because you got to, I guess, in some aspects on iTunes, you just can't be like music, and it's like
Yeah.
okay, but we have to label it something. But I'm just so like
Right.
I I wish like I listened to Shania Twain, but necessarily
Hmm.
like I'm sure it's country, but it's like pop
Right.
country. And then
Right.
it's like
It's not what you think of.
you listen to
Yeah.
country artists and like today's country, it's kind of like
Yeah.
Morgan Wallen to me doesn't, or is it
Yeah.
Wallen? Doesn't sound
Well,
to me like country as much. Like it
right.
classifies it, but it's just there's people out there
Sure.
that would never listen to country. It's like, you want to put on some country? I hate that. And then it's like,
Yeah.
okay. And then it's like, play this Morgan guy. And I'm like, but you just said that you didn't like country.
Yeah,
It's like, he's
yeah,
not
yeah.
country though. I'm just like, I'll find it on iTunes. It says
Yeah.
country. Like,
Right, yeah.
so
It's an interesting thing.
yeah, like they just expand outside the bubble. But I think the one artist that I've found recently that was kind of like that, of like the crossroads of like, I'm just gonna do what I want to do. It's like um it's like Taylor Swift started off in country for like 2 or 3 songs. I know
Right.
there's probably more, but to me it was almost like 2 or 3 songs when I was in high school. Then it's just like,
Yeah.
now I'm gonna go pop. Oh, now I'm gonna go write Betty folklore.
Yeah.
And I'm just like, it's all over, but no one really goes after her of being like, hey, you're
Yeah, she's
switching lanes.
queen.
Yeah,
She
yeah,
can do whatever she wants,
yeah.
right?
So yeah,
That's
so
that's obviously the goal as an artist to be able to like that. I mean, we're creatives. Like we should do whatever feels
yeah, yeah.
natural for us to
Imagine
do.
if you weren't. It's like we're creatives, but we're very limited and we can't do much. It's just like,
Yeah, what is
yeah.
that about?
Yeah.
Like
That'd be like me,
no
like right now,
way.
being like, I want to do a podcast about this. No, you can't. I'd be like, okay, but you're still creative. I'm just like,
Yeah,
I can't be because everything I'm tossing at you, you're throwing out. Uh,
yeah.
Chloe, to kind of, I guess, clue it up in a way, we do
Mhm.
have a fun game of random questions.
Oh, fun. Okay, hit it.
Okay. I'm sure we've played this in the past. Well, actually, we played like I think when we were on like Pop Canada, we played a Canada quiz with you, and you were like, "I don't want to do a Canada quiz." And I was just like, "Don't worry, it's not that hard."
Oh,
uh,
yeah.
yeah,
And I was like, I don't really
yeah, yeah.
know.
It's funny because I remember that because I was just like, it was like one of the first ones we did, but at the same
Yeah.
aspect is you were walking around like because I remember at one point you're just like, I just gotta sit down for a second. I was just like, what's she doing? And you're just like, I'm just walking around. I was like, awesome, great.
That's
Uh,
funny. Yeah, knowing
so
me, I
the
was like on a walk.
yeah the first random question. Let's see what they generated here. Right, what's a movie?
Mhm.
I guess you could say like that inspired you. Whether it doesn't have to be like in music, but just like to do something. Like I'll give you my example.
Yeah.
And it's like when I was younger, but I remember watching Coach Carter. And it was like right before
Okay.
like hockey, not even the same
Yeah.
sport. But I was just sort of like, I was like,
Yeah.
man, I'm very amped up to go play some hockey now because this
Oh,
coach guy got in my
yeah.
ear, Samuel L.
Yeah.
Jackson. And he was just like, you can do it. Like, I don't care if you're a nobody, you can do it. And I'm just like, I am a
Yeah.
nobody and I'm going to do it.
I love it. I love it. Oh man, that's a tough one. I would say, I mean, a movie that inspired me, like just based on its soundtrack entirely, is A Walk to Remember. Like,
That's a fairly good movie.
oh my god, I loved that movie, and the whole soundtrack's like amazing, and you get what you give. New Radicals on there. Dancing in the Moonlight's on there, top loader version. Like, yeah, and I reference those
Mandy Moore.
often.
Mandy Moore's on there
Mandy
for sure.
Moore is
Yeah.
my queen. Yeah, so I'm gonna choose that one.
That's fair. I didn't know like on that I guess on their soundtrack that New Radicals would be on it because I'm after hearing that
Yeah.
song like so many times and like what's the other one?
Yeah.
Click.
Oh, the soundtrack.
Click
So
uses
good.
it at the end of theirs, like the Adam Sandler movie.
Okay. I feel like I hated that movie, but I don't know. Maybe not.
Yep. There's a lot of movies that I'm like either diehard Adam Sandler like go to yes, or if
Yeah.
someone's like Adam Sandler's mediocre, I'm just like can't really argue with you when you bring up a certain movie because I'm just like okay fair, but I'm just like
Right. Yeah.
he's still my guy, still my guy.
Yeah.
Let's go with what's another good random one that they have here. Let's see. Let's do a peek. What is something you want to accomplish in the next 10 years?
I want to go on tour. I want to. Yeah, I mean, I want to go on tour. I want to meet my fans that I've had for a while and more than that, and the international ones. And I want to be able to financially be able to have the freedom to support friends and family and also like pursue multiple creative opportunities and ideas that I have and things that I want to execute in my career, music and just creatively in general. So those are two big things.
That's That's fair. And like in the next 10 years, I just hope that like this keeps growing. That's basically
Yeah,
small goal
yeah,
for
100%.
me.
Next level
Yeah,
shit.
yeah, yeah. 10 years from now, just be like, how many times has Chloe been on now? It's like, well, she came on 2 more times, and you know, we did great, but it's to the point now where I can't even contact her anymore. It's like, yeah, I can't even go through Natasha. Natasha's like, I know we're friends, but like, I just can't get her on. I'd be like, oh, okay. It's like, I
No.
saved you from a car wreck, Natasha.
Yeah,
Yeah.
there you go. Oh my
The
God.
last one, okay, this one's not random, but I want to bring it up. Somewhat, I guess not really related to it, but still someone might be out there and be like, oh, that's cool. Because I read that at 11, you had kind of this illness, and then to kind of,
Yeah.
I guess to overcome it or to kind of distract you, that's when you picked up a guitar.
Yeah.
And then like you went through YouTube and then you were looking for me, but you couldn't find me because you know, no. But like tell me a little bit about like why, because that's still at 11. Like I have a nephew that's 11, but I don't feel
Yeah.
like he's, not that I don't think he's capable of doing things. He's definitely,
Yeah.
but I just don't. I'm looking at myself. Maybe I'll use myself at 11. I probably wasn't being like, dude, I'm going through something. I'm definitely picking up a guitar, or I'm definitely
Yeah.
going to learn this. I'm at 11. I'm probably going to be like, I feel sad for myself. I'm just going
Yeah.
to sit here for a while. I'm at 30 and I'd still probably do that. They're like,
Yeah.
do something. I'm like, no, I feel like being sad.
Yeah. I mean, obviously, and then you have times when you do want to feel sad, and that's when you turn to sad music,
That's when you turn on Oasis
sad
and you just like,
song.
don't go away.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I mean, obviously, like for me, like I started writing songs technically when I was 6, and like music's always been something that I was felt really connected to, and it runs my family, and even just like understanding lyrics that I should know from a young age. But yeah, at that point, I was obsessed with music. I was obsessed with discovering artists and songs and like finding other people that did what I did to feel connected, I guess.
Yeah.
And I'd always, been a creative writer too, and loved to write stories and little novels and poetry. And the fact that I could like make melodies, like and try to understand myself at the same time and process it all, just like was an obvious thing to me. And I mean, I remember like very vividly like writing my first song with a guitar, not just like, because I used to just like, I didn't have like voice memos even. I would just try to like remember what the melody was and write down the lyrics and stuff like that. But I remember the first time I was like sitting on my parents' bed and I like figured out a couple of chords and like wrote the song, and like out of nowhere, like these lyrics were like so deep and like things that I hadn't even necessarily experienced. My parents were just like, what? Like where did that come from? But I just let it was the first time I felt like I could sit there and just like let like my whole being and like emotions like flow and just totally like again like surrender into the music. And that's when I just wanted to keep doing it, I guess, like over and over after that. It's like somebody who plays soccer, for example, and they're playing and they're running and they just feel so free and like they kick a goal and it goes in, you know what I mean? And it feels right. You want to just keep doing it over and over. And that's kind of like how it felt to me, even though I wasn't at the point where I was like, let me get on a stage in front of the world.
Yeah.
At that point.
Chloe, I guess another like just kind of like to kind of close it out here, but when you look at I guess how many months we got left here? Like October, November, like 3 or 4 months, I guess. Well, maybe like 3 months. Like, is there anything in particular that you have for like, because some artists might have something on their list or something they want to do before the year ends. Have you ever made like one of those for like 2023 where you're like, I want to achieve this by this point? I've done it. Or if you haven't, you kind of switched it up and said, I'm happy with this.
Yeah, I definitely, like I said, like I write out my manifestations.
Yeah, on a mirror.
Yeah, there's a lot in my journal and stuff too. So like if there's anything left to do, there's always something left to do. It doesn't necessarily mean it's in my control. I guess for me, it's like making sure that the next the next song is like out there in the world, and maybe play a couple more shows with my band. And I really want to get merch out there, so I think let me make that a goal.
That's fair.
That'd be good.
Do you have like an idea of it being like, because I read, now I don't know if you know this, I'm sure you do, but there is, I think it's on Instagram as well, but there's a group that's called like the Chloe Caroline Crew.
Yeah.
Do you have like like a shirt design for that, like a triple C,
or just like
a C C C?
I really should. I forgot who I was talking to though the other day, and they were like, "That's lame. That's a lame name." I'm like, "Yo, I didn't come up with that." I
didn't go out on the street and be like, "Okay, guys, anyone who likes me, we're actually called my first and last name with Crew." Yeah, that's how egotistical I am.
I like the triple C though. I think I like it. I don't know, man.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, I should definitely get those.
What is it in math? It's not called. It's not 3 squared. Is it 3 cubed?
You mean alliteration?
Yeah. No, it's got like it's like the C and then the 3. I thought like because I know squared is like you could have 5 squared. Yeah, there you go. You could just make a cue ball with a C in it, and that'd be like for your math fans.
Yeah, exactly.
And they'd be like, I don't understand it. And then there's some math guy be like, I understand it. It's math, and I love that girl.
It's actually not a bad idea. Yeah, exactly. I'll just have like a really nice thing.
Yeah. You never know. You could have someone down the road be like, I'm glad that you thought of me. Be like, not me, but
you. That's going to do it for this episode of Tobin Tonight. Our thanks to Chloe Caroline for coming on to the show. Remember, you can find past, present, and future episodes on TobinTonight.com, Spotify, and iTunes. Follow us on Twitter, like us on Facebook, and leave a comment or two. For Tobin and myself, this is Jacob saying thank you for listening and good night.